President makes his way into the House chamber. We're waiting that. Of course, we're going to go to that in a moment. Since you ran, let me just ask you from where my reporter had for a moment. How much...
I want to find out a word or phrase. I'm going to start with you. Word or phrase to describe tonight's State of the Union speech.
List of accomplishments.
Truthful.
Surprisingly on message.
Questionable.
No holds barred.
Encouraging.
Full of lies and inaccuracies.
Surprisingly emotional. Self-congratulatory.
Unexpectedly subdued.
Absolutely optimistic.
Blatant pandering.
Delusional.
Very detailed.
Results.
Patriotic.
Cherry picking.
Pure winning.
Fascist.
Boastful.
Inaccurate.
Political. Advertisement.
A false facade.
Fulfilling and optimistic.
I know that half of you like him and half of you hate him. And two of you can't make up your minds. We'll find out later which side. I want to give viewers at home a reason to stay put, so I'll be going to the two of you at the end for this. But show of hands, no matter what you thought going in, who would say the speech exceeded your expectations, exceeded them? Raise your hands. That's a lot of the group. So let me start with those who don't like Donald Trump. Why did the speech exceed your expectations? There don't have to be 3 or 4 of you. Go ahead.
Because he stuck to the script, which I didn't expect.
What were you expecting?
I was expecting him to go off at some point.
And go off and do what?
Be even more divisive than he usually is.
Did you feel he was divisive tonight?
Absolutely.
He was divisive.
Yes.
On what?
I found him divisive on a number of issues. Number one, to the extent that he wished to speak about the State of the Union as being in a positive area, he always did it in the framework of dragging down the prior administrations, whether Obama or Bush. I found that his section when he talked about immigration and the way he was framing some of these very, very tragic stories. But again, it was feeding into a narrative about brown people versus other people that I found very troubling.
Is that fair?
No.
Why not? Why not?
It's not fair because it could be any color of someone that's come into this country, not legally. It doesn't have to be black or brown or yellow or purple. Anybody that is here illegally and commits a crime and kills an American, they should be punished.
He talked about how many people he detained, but he omitted how many children he detained in the process. And other than that, I'm a Hispanic American woman. My grandmother's from Guadalajara. I don't appreciate hearing my ancestry criminalized. I will never appreciate it.
Well, your ancestry isn't criminalized. Criminals are criminalized.
Exactly.
He's making the distinction. They were brought there by criminal parents.
Exactly.
He's making the distinction between good people and bad people, not people of different colors. And if you're a criminal and you come up,
asylum seekers?
what about asylum seekers? Get in line.
Exactly.
I was just going to say
Fill out the paperwork.
His opponents keep referring to cages, and they seem to forget that those cages were built during the Obama administration.
By Obama.
But I want to focus on the speech tonight, General. I'll bring you in 1 second. What was the most important line? What was the most important moment to you of the entire speech? Did anything stand out?
That we're a nation under God, and he touched on at the end a wonderful history lesson talking about the vision for America and why our civilization is worth preserving for the future.
Somebody else?
The economy, without
Education reform.
Why was that so
Getting
significant?
these inner city kids into good schools.
Yeah.
That's, if you want to save the future of this country, you can't do anything bigger than that. Get these kids out of failing public schools.
Absolutely.
Well, giving incentive to public schools to actually do something better. If there's no incentive, they'll never really up their game.
Because charter schools are not going to work. They're just not going to work. They need to invest in the schools that are already there. And Betsy DeVos is the worst thing to happen.
Okay, but we're going to stay, no matter what you want to do, we're going to stay on tonight's speech. General, question for you.
So, you know, the thing that really struck me was, before I came in here,
everybody says this election's going to be about health care this year. So do you, yep, just a second on the clip. So do you think he covered the issue of health care well enough? Those of you that support Donald Trump or lean in that direction, did he cover health care? Do you feel like he's going to take care of your health care needs? Somebody?
I feel he's playing defense on health care.
Exactly. I feel the same way, like he has to play defense because he can't just do this by himself. He needs the Congress to come together. And, you know, he's trying to say, hey, I want to do this. And he's been saying pre-existing conditions are a priority. Everybody on the Democratic side says, oh, no, he never said that. But it's not true. He has been saying that since 2016.
Somebody else.
So,
Okay. Can we get somebody else here? Somebody who hasn't spoken. Yes, sir.
His Justice Department still has an ongoing lawsuit to strip pre-existing conditions. Personally, I don't believe him. I'm someone with a pre-existing condition. I do not feel safe that I will have health care if he still remains in the presidency.
Can we roll the clip?
Now I want to show you this clip and remind you of what the reaction to it was. Go to the clip on socialized medicine.
132 lawmakers in this room have endorsed legislation to impose a socialist takeover of our healthcare system, wiping out the private health insurance plans of 180 million very happy Americans.
This was a powerful moment.
For those watching at home tonight, I want you to know we will never let socialism destroy American healthcare.
That was a powerful moment in that speech. Now, if you are a Democrat or leaning in that direction, what did you take from that message? Are you worried about what Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and people like that say? Do you think that this is an unfair charge? Do you want to keep your existing health care plans? What is it? This gentleman right here with the glasses. Yes, sir.
I believe that universal health
You're going to have to speak up because I've got artillery ears. I'm sorry.
I believe that universal health care is the only way to get all people covered under an affordable health care plan.
I'm originally from Europe, and it's the standard over there. And even the most strongest economic countries like Germany, like France, we have what they call here socialized medicine, and it works very, very well because everybody is covered.
We are the only.
This gentleman right here in the center, please, with the sweater.
I believe that when he blamed everything on socialists and all that, that really upset me. Mm-hmm. But also, I don't believe in full just where it's just one way to go, where it's just the government only. I like kind of a mix of it, just see what's best.
Somebody else, this gentleman here.
I'm from a socialist country, from Cuba, and I know what socialism can do to a country. And I'm an immigrant, so I know what that sort of extreme leftist kind of mentality to healthcare could do to such a system. So I have firsthand knowledge of how could it destroy an entire healthcare system. And didn't we pass Obamacare? Isn't that what we did for a few years? What else do we want? I mean, we passed landmark reform, so how much further are we going to go? Because I'm paying almost a car payment a month as a healthy 36-year-old for health insurance, and it seems like it's going to get worse and worse by the month.
So, Frank, now you're the master of language. So this clip and these reactions, people are hot about health care. What is this term socialism going to do in this election? Is it going to stick? Is it going to be a branding iron that smashes the Democrats? Or is it something that they're going to look at and say, you know, it's so simplistic, it's not like that at all?
So let's ask them. When a candidate talks about taking a socialist approach, or such as Bernie Sanders, who is a Democratic socialist and is proud to call himself a Democratic socialist, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Right. Raise your hands if you think it's a good thing, and raise your hands if you think it's a bad thing. Why is it a good thing? Why is it a good thing?
It's not 100% one way. It's not 100% socialism. It's fractions.
Is she right?
She's misinformed. Bernie Sanders is unrepentant communist.
Exactly. Honeymoon in Soviet Union. Would you elect such a politician to the
office of the President of the United States? It's ridiculous.
Is it
To mention the word socialism in this country is a travesty, okay? It was a killer system that enslaved people, put people in prisons, in concentration camps, and you put the label of socialism? This is un-American.
Do you know who the active military donates to out of all the presidential candidates? Bernie Sanders, not Donald Trump. No. Not any other presidential nominee.
Well, the thing is, people don't realize socializing anything takes money, and where's that money going to come from?
From us.
Well, to the 1%.
From us.
The 1%.
Will not have an incentive.
Billionaires. Are you a billionaire?
Exactly.
Is that going to affect
I'm not a
you?
billionaire, but I like to earn my money and be able to pay my bills.
No, I'm not.
But I pay taxes.
Is it a crime if we were?
It's not a crime.
Then why would you want to, if I earned $1 billion, why would you want to take it away from me? Why do you want to steal my money?
Socialism
Socialism is theft. Socialism is theft.
Exactly. And then where do you go? You
So
go
in the same
Exactly what happened.
In his speech tonight, he talked about spending
Oh,
a
and
lot
will
of
it stay
money
there?
on defense. And instead, what we need to start doing is protecting and ensuring that the people in this country have the things that we need. So for example, I'm a small business owner, but I will tell you, I have a huge, huge healthcare debt. And I'm sick and tired that every single one of us is one paycheck away from falling into that. We shouldn't have to decide whether we can pay for our rent or we can pay for our prescriptions.
Well, maybe if Democrats had lower taxes, you wouldn't be in that problem. Yeah, I mean, gas taxes, food taxes, income taxes, we're drowning in taxes. Healthcare tax would be affordable if we weren't taxed to death.
Well, as always, Trump was really long on blaming people and short on what he's going to do. So it would be great if he says, this is what I'm going to do, instead of like saying, this is bad, this is bad. He needs to tell us what is his plan.
What he was letting everybody know what has been
But
happening.
he didn't let us know anything. He just said, this is bad. It's like, so what are you going to do to change
He cut
it?
taxes, he employed people.
And I
He took the
understand
shackles
what
off industry.
Obamacare has been doing throughout the medical
Everyone.
system.
Okay, hold on.
Thank you.
Yeah, the general, you and I talked about this before this started. You people are rude. You're talking over each other. You're not listening to each other. You're having 3 or 4 conversations among you. You're nodding. I'm telling you the truth, am I not? I have one question for you. In general, I'm going to go back to you. Everything that Trump said, just about everything he said, those of you who are Democrats in this room, dialed them down. Yeah. Even when they were showing, the first time they announced that Rush Limbaugh had cancer, Democrats dialed it down.
He's a human being.
He's a human being. And you Republicans, everything he said, you Trump people, everything he said, you dialed it up. You're both guilty of this. You're both rejecting virtually everything. Is this just California or is this America?
Politics has become guttural. Politics has become guttural.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything is about feelings. And if people don't like him, then they don't like him.
If I may, to the extent that I was dialing down, it was either because I did not agree with a particular policy or I did not believe what was being said as being factual and honest.
So let me ask you
and
one
I do,
specific
and
question.
I do think,
Allow me to ask you one question.
But let me just finish
Allow
that.
me to ask you just one question.
Okay.
3.5% unemployment.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that's not factual?
How do we know that?
Well, let me give you the context. I believe it is factual, but it goes back to what I said earlier. What was problematic for me is that it's framed as if it is something that is a result of the policies that President Trump has
So
put
you
into
think Donald Trump has not had any impact on the economy?
No, let me
But we have
finish. Let me finish
we
my
have 90
sentence.
seconds. Ma'am, we have 90
Oh,
seconds.
I didn't realize that. You
And
didn't
so
tell
they're
me
talking
that.
in my ear.
I've got to get
What
this
I'm
point.
saying is
But you
that
gotta hurry.
the 3.5%, I believe it's true. I know it's true, but it is also part of a trajectory that started 10 years ago.
But you dialed it down.
Which he does not give credit for.
Black unemployment, all-time low. You dialed it down.
Exactly.
Hispanic unemployment, you dialed it down. These are facts, and I don't understand about it.
I'm not dialing down
Look here.
the facts.
He
In the
outranks
most
me.
spontaneous moment of the evening, Frank asked you to raise your hands on socialism and what it meant. And 2/3 of you said it was a really bad thing. Instantaneous response. That's a really, and this is from the, where they call it, in some places, the left coast. So, Republicans, I want to ask you this question. What's the one issue that was not brought up that you would have wanted to be brought up by the President of the United States in this speech?
I think he should have brought up criminal justice more. I mean, he just had that ad at the Super Bowl over the woman that he pardoned. There was the bipartisan criminal justice bill that was passed. I think that he could have talked more about that. Actually, now that I think about it, I think he did talk about it a little bit. So, my bad.
I would say about national.
Quickly.
For me, with President Trump, and I've written him, for national ID, voter
National ID.
That global warming is a
Global
hoax.
warming is a hoax.
It's fake.
Okay.
It's a hoax.
I think divisiveness is something that he feels.
As a businessman, what? What is the issue that dominates Republican thinking that was never brought up tonight? See, it wasn't. He was successful because you didn't say the deficit.
Right.
The deficit. What's happening to the deficit? And this is the characteristic of a very successful speech. Everybody understands that if Democrats are in office, Republicans say, oh, you can't do that because that's going to raise a deficit. But you all didn't pick up on it. The Congress didn't complain about it. Must be okay.
I was dialing him down when he was talking about the social programs he was going to spend money on.
Yep.
Because I didn't, you know, when he's talking about expanding child care for this or that or the other, it's like, come on, that's not government's job.
We're done with the live portion in 1 second. We got two undecided people here. How did this speech affect your vote?
I don't think I've ever really heard words out of his mouth. I've only heard analysis, and I was really surprised at how much I liked what he said.
So does this mean you now lean towards him?
Well, I'm not close to him. I'm leaning towards him. We'll see what the Democrats bring.
But he did well for you tonight.
He did well for me tonight. I was amazed. A lot of the issues he said resonated with me. They were issues that I thought were Democrat issues, but he was talking about them as his own, and yeah, I was surprised.
You're the other undecided voter. How did you move?
He did well, but for me, the undecided is about who the Democratic nominee is. If they nominate a socialist, if they nominate Bernie Sanders, I'm not going to vote for the Democrat. If they do somebody reasonable, somebody moderate, somebody like Pete, Amy, or Biden, I could be more inclined.
So Trump said nothing tonight to move you either way.
Well, I would say if he consistently was on message like this, he could move me, but this is an anomaly. This isn't how his campaign rallies are.
Let me ask you anything about the Democratic response. Okay, the Democratic response. How many of you thought that the Democratic response was a fair answer to Donald Trump? Okay, it's about 50-50. For the undecided, did the Democratic response, did it resonate the same way that what Donald Trump's remarks, as how they resonated? Ma'am?
She's a less enthusiastic speaker, but yeah, I liked some of the things she said. I liked her.
I think she was there for one reason, because she's a female from Michigan, and Michigan's a swing state. Exactly. That's the reason she was there.
Same with the black people.
Same with all the
Last comment, final comment.
I think she had a very unifying message, and that I think is resonating at an especially divisive
I
time.
thought it was divisive.
I
I
did
thought
too.
she brought a lot of issues that just kind of put Donald Trump down, and that was one of the things I didn't want to see.
Okay, well, speaking of divisive, that's what we have right here.
Let me ask you a question as we wrap the live part. Let me ask you, Frank Luntz, a question, and that is...
I don't like answering questions.
Well, you have to.
Ask me.
The reporter asked you the question. You've been doing focus groups for a long time. This is a pretty passionate crowd. How has this shifted? In just a few seconds, how's this shifted over the years, the way politics runs in this country?
I was annoyed. You know I was annoyed. I was annoyed that everything that a Trump person, every time that Donald Trump spoke, the red lines went up. Every time he said something against the Democrats, the Democratic lines went down. Every time consistently. Now, there were a few exceptions. We have become so polarized, so divided, that we don't hear anymore. And they may say that they do, but in reality, I'll tell you, I looked at the lines for over an hour. No, you don't. You two may, but most of them do not. They will find a reason to like him or dislike him, no matter what he says, and that's new in American politics.
And we have an election coming up that'll have to figure out where we go on that. And of course, your conversation with these folks isn't over, so they've got more to talk to you, but they're our conversation for this point. I want to thank pollster Frank Luntz, retired General Wesley Clark, of course, this group, and all of you for watching this live stream tonight, this Pulse of the Nation, as we would call it. For the Los Angeles Times, I'm John Myers. Thanks very much.
Give yourself a hand.
Yeah.